Howdy all, I'm Paul Thompson and we are quickly approaching the summer solstice, but this is my Project Hell, where for the next 20 minutes, Kelly and I are going to throw out the corporate lingo and just talk no nonsense project management and give you plain solutions to real project problems.
And I'm Kelly Schockler, and in today's episode, we'll be sharing one of our hot topics. Usually it's a thought-provoking subject that will help you ponder and find something useful to take away and apply to your own project management practice. And then we're going to spotlight our guest project manager in the Coach's Corner, where they're going to share their project hell situation and then invite us into the flames with them to find some useful solutions. And last, it might not seem like it, but we do have an intention of taking a few minutes to answer a question or two from those of you who are joining us live today. And you can enter those questions right in the Q&A feature of Zoom. And also for those of you who are here live, go ahead and use the chat to share your ideas and thoughts with one another and with us. So Paul, let's move on to our hot topic.
That's right, scapegoating, which really dates back into the days of Leviticus, when what the Hebrews would do to prepare for Yom Kippur is they would cast all their sins and injustices onto a goat and then send that goat out into the desert to carry all their sins away. Now, these days, we don't so much have a goat, but corporate politics often does the same thing by singling out a person or group and assigning blame for the failed project or a corporate injustice to them. And then that person is fired or publicly shamed, releasing the company of all guilt. It's a great thing, right? And today we want to talk about that because in many cases, project managers are way too easy of scapegoat in many corporate failures.
Yeah, and thanks for the history lesson. I love the history behind this stuff. It's fascinating. And being the project scapegoat, definitely not a fun place to be. I know Paul and I have both personally been there, myself as a consultant and a full-time employee. And either way, it's still emotionally painful to have leaders assign negative work outcomes and blame you as the project manager when you know you personally did not create the bad outcomes. And most likely you probably worked your ass off to keep it from happening and pouring your heart and soul into leading the project, right? So, often things are outside of our control as project managers, and yet we are the face of the project. We're the project leader, and it's just convenient. It's a fact of life. It's convenient to point the finger at us. And Paul, I want to share this story. As I was thinking about this, I was thinking of a topic, or when I used to work for an oil spill response program up in Alaska, and the company mission was prevention and response. So the first thing, prevent the oil spills, and in case there is one, have a plan to respond. And so I was really focusing in on that response part of the prevention and response question. What do you do when you're put in the position of project scapegoat? And I think that goes back to character. Who are you when life deals you the tough, unfair BS? How do you respond in the high heat situations where rumor and the company grapevine are just adding insult to injury? And I think that if you've done your project prevention activities well, responding is simple. Ask the right stakeholders. I'm going to call them scapegoaters. Ask them this question: what could we have done differently in the project to get different outcomes? Then you have the learnings, you have the takeaways for next time. And this is the hard part, it's acceptance and moving on, because there is zero value in stewing, defending, back channel politicking. There's just zero positive to that. What do you think, Paul?
Well, and I really like the way you ask it, right? What could we as collective have done about it, right? Bring them into, hey, it's your fault too. Don't pin it all on me.
We.
But let's talk about the first part of your dichotomy, right? Was the preventive. What can we do as project managers to avoid the problems from arising in the first place? And you hear me say it all the time, right? Maintaining transparency and visibility, in my mind, is one of the best ways to avoid scapegoating, right? If we make sure all stakeholders are aware of all the aspects of the project, it's less likely because everybody knows what's going on, right? And at MetaGuire, we do this with two very simple items. We use a RAID log and dashboards. For those of you not familiar, the RAID log documents all the who, what, where, why of project risks, assumptions, issues, and decisions, right? We keep that collective knowledge of a decision that's made, who made it, and why, just so going back, we always have our audit trail of how we got to where we are today. Dashboards in our world are real-time views into the project, and it presents the information that's easily digestible and consumable that the stakeholders will actually pull in and keep an eye on the project with. And this is kind of key, right? Because just having a giant repository with 4 million documents is great, and it's a CYA, but it doesn't lend to that transparency, to that engaged stakeholder. You really have to take the information and create a consumable way for your stakeholders to ingest it so that the project is really part of them. But be aware, it's a two-edged sword, right? Double-edged sword. If you're not doing your job, this transparency and everything kind of highlights it quickly, right? When you hear people saying, "Hey, where's this report?" or "How come I can't find this information?" you should start paying attention that you're probably not giving them something that's consumable. But if you are doing your job well and you're using these tools, you're pretty much avoiding being thrown under the bus by a rogue politician.
Good insights, Paul. I think that prevention of maintaining transparency and visibility with the stakeholders, those are a critical part of our project service delivery excellence. And those are the things that can help prevent that unfounded blame and finger pointing over the long haul, right? The prevention piece of the equation. And, getting sacrificed as a scapegoat PM, it goes back to that internal trauma that it can really cause us to lose or just kind of falter in our project manager mojo. And as I close this hot topic out, I want to mention a book by the author Elizabeth Lesser. It's called Broken Open: How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow. And it's about raising up from the ash heap of life's challenges. And so if you're in that place right now, it's a great book. And I also want to mention that Paul has a great RAID log template on his website if you want to go check out the learning resources there. And I have one as well on mine. So yeah, we don't want to leave you wanting for lack of templates. We've got you covered there. So Paul, I would like to move us over into the coach's corner with our guest PM. Terry.
Outstanding. Who do we have today?
Today we've got Terry, and let's see. Terry's over. He's in our panelist mode now. Great. Welcome, Terry. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Doing good, Paul. Nice to see you, Kelly. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, welcome on. Tell us about your Project Hell conundrum right now. What's the issue for you?
Well, I'll get to it quickly, but Paul's topic today, I narrowly averted being a scapegoat on a project that I just finished. And had I listened to Paul's advice when I worked with him before, I would have had a RAID log. However, I did work through the PMO and I was transparent. So it worked out, but that RAID log's a big deal. So anyways, I wanted to bring up certifications. I'm back on the job market. I've been doing contracting for a number of years. My contract expired at a company in early May. And so I'm out looking, and my background is in network engineering. So I want to talk about certifications and the importance of them. And being a network engineer, Cisco certifications used to be the big deal, CCIE, CCNP, CCNA, all that stuff, right? And I did all that track work except the CCIE. I didn't go that far. But a lot of companies place such importance on that, and I've found that in the last 10 years or so, experience trumps it every time on a certification. I think it's really good maybe for some entry level people just getting into the job market as a PM. I just want to know what people's feelings are. The thing is, there's a lot of money to be made in doing these tracks, and a ton of money, and everybody does it, Pearson VUE, you name it. And they all charge big, big bucks, and it's worldwide. So it's a huge market. It'd be interesting to know the numbers there. But there's no guarantee of a job. And I think employers look at it, there's just so many certifications now. There's a plethora of them. If you don't have the absolute correct one that they're looking for, I just want your guys' thoughts. What's the importance of these?
Sure. So thanks for bringing this up. It's a common question that we get, and a lot of my coaching clients ask about. And just a few more questions for you. Where do you consider yourself in the project management experience spectrum?
On the technical side, having been in infrastructure engineering, et cetera, experience, quite a few years. A lot of that has melded. As being a PM, I've been on both sides of ITOs where I've been delivering services on an ITO. I've been the consumer of ITO services and managing those. And I've also co-managed an ISP. So I'd say my experience is pretty deep, especially on the ISP side. A lot of project work there.
And then do you have an end goal here? Do you want to stay as a contractor? Would you like to get into an FTE role? It's about the bucks. All right.
Yep.
It seems like you're pretty sure about that. So excellent. No shame in that. So Paul.
Well,
go ahead and crack this one first.
First, just, full disclosure, Terry and I have worked together on a couple of projects. He was at one of my clients and rolled into our project. So we have some background. Second, Terry, you're asking the right question to Kelly, because when she talks, she's going to be giving you a very deep insight because of some of her background that's really into the whole training and the PMI stuff. I'm going to talk to you, though, a little bit more kind of shooting from the hip. So one of the things that is somewhat frustrating is always the gatekeepers, right? You go to apply for some of these things and they call, PMP or whatever certifications they want. Now, you may have 10 years, 20 years, 50 years experience, but the gatekeeper, right, HR or the recruiter has a checklist, and they're just going down that checklist, and they haven't been told they could substitute 10 years experience for the PMP. So nope. So there's that side of it, right? But it's also only one check mark of many. So oftentimes, right, we want to see somebody who's got networking experience, PMP, experience working with ISPs and procuring network bandwidth and managing, all these different things. And if you can check off all but the PMP, you're probably getting past them, right? Because our goal, right, is really to get in front of the manager who's doing the hiring, that needs to know that when they look us in the eye, we're going to manage their project and get it done for them. And they believe that and they understand how, right? We have that, we're able to project that confidence and the knowledge needed to move their project forward. So think of it very similar to, all the old Cisco stuff, right? Because as Kelly's going to tell you, they're changing drastically. So comes down to really, if you want to go generic and apply for most all projects, you're probably going to need to get some certification. And whether that's through some PMP, actual PMP certification, or a certificate of project management through like UW or some other recognized authority, you're probably going to do that. If you want to focus really and stay narrow, right? Projects within the network team, within an ISP, with, kind of defines pretty narrow groove, you can get past all those gatekeepers. So it sort of depends on where you want to go and where the market's going. Right now, if you've got cloud anything on your resume, PMP's thrown out the window, right? So kind of keep that in mind. And it may even be worth looking down the road. Security, right? Getting a security certificate, in my opinion, is going to mean more in a little while than having the PMP, even if you're just managing it, right? Because now you've proven you understand what you're managing and all the things that you know how to do with networking. So that's the long answer to the short question I've got.
And if you hear Paul kind of like, it could go either way, that's what I'm going to be saying too, because it can. There's pros and cons for each direction. Yeah. You can make a case for each side. So that said, I'm a member of something called the Project Management Training Alliance, where it's a group of PMI, PMP prep training providers, mostly. I'm kind of the unicorn because I don't do that. But this past year, we've been seeing PMI continue to water down the PMP certification, lowering the barriers to entry, making the test easier, although some dubious PMP training providers say, oh, it's harder. You need to take training from me to pass it, but it's not. It's getting a little easier. So, and from where you're standing right now, or any of our listeners are standing, this could be a good thing, but it does make that PMP certification a little bit less meaningful. And this is definitely a direction PMI has been headed and is headed. They've got a bunch of certifications, a bunch of micro certifications now, yep. Right? And so they're diluting the process and confusing not only those that are heading into the project management practice, but the hiring managers are confused. As Paul said, you'll see job requirements saying we require, a generic PM certificate or a PMP certification, without understanding that those certifications in no way guarantee project manager abilities, right? So go ahead.
Yeah, I've done a lot of the SAFe or the scheduled agile training stuff, right? And my feeling is PMI is looking at that and going, these guys are raking in the bucks.
You got it, Terry. That is it. So if you're sticking around in your career for another 5-10 years, I think your best bet would be to get something, whether, as Paul said, it's a certificate from a community college project management program or one of the universities, something reputable, right? Yeah. And then, or if you want to go for your formal SAFe Agile, unless you already have that should be enough. But I like where Paul is going with the security certificate, because we know that is now and the future.
Love the analogy of the great gatekeeper. That was great.
Yeah, and then one thing though that you said about you've seen experience trump certificates. I've also seen the opposite, where if it's you and someone else, all things being equal, there's differences, they have a certificate of some sort or a PMP, they're probably going to go with them. So, stay relevant. Stay relevant. And if you do want to go get your PMP, hit me up. I can give you some recommendations for some excellent test prep providers. Oh, and also Paul and I would love if you took us up on our 30-minute free session that we give, and we can, dive into this a little bit more with you if you want.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'll cut it here, but I just want to say one last thing. On my next job that I do find Paul, the first project meeting, I'm bringing GOAT with me.
There you go.
All's rope framework. Awesome.
All right. I just want to
Thanks,
kind
Terry.
of give you one quick story because it happened real recently, right? That Terry, we were applying to some government work, and it was very clear they already had somebody in mind. And so it was written this amount of experience in PM in project, this amount of experience in QA, this certificate, right? And they were unwilling to move it in any direction. So life's not fair, right? Sometimes the deck is stacked against us, and all we can do is kind of plan for the best and and hope, right? We'll work on it. But as Kelly said, time to start looking at those certificate options and consider where you want to go. So, all right.
All right, let's put some closure on this, Paul.
I'm guessing, yeah.
Okay, so we've got replays of all 10 of our episodes on our YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the post-show email that you're going to get. And again, those Calendly links to schedule time with Paul or I, if you want some help troubleshooting something, just connect with us. We're happy to meet one-on-one with you to solve for your current project hell.
And I hope you all did enjoy the show. I know Kelly and I had a lot of fun. Please join us next time when we're going to cover Death by 1,000 Cuts. One of my favorite. But if you would like to participate in Coach's Corner, drop us an email at myprojecthell@gmail.com or go onto our website. We're always on the lookout for project managers who want to pull themselves out of their own personal hell.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.